Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mass Retirees Weekly Update. Today's Friday, August 23rd. I'm Sean Duhamel. Thank you so much for joining with us and tuning in. Now, the main topic that we're going to discuss this week is an update for all of you on the Social Security windfall elimination provision and government pension offset. But before I do that, I just want to say a quick word of thanks to those members who have taken the time over the past few weeks to reach out to us and share your thoughts and feelings and experience when it comes to post-retirement public sector work here in Massachusetts, or over the past week, your experiences or your thoughts on medical marijuana. Now, we, in the last two messages, have asked for feedback from members, and you were able to give it to us. We deeply appreciate that. It really helps us to be better informed going forward, know what types of experiences our members are living on a day-to-day basis, and it very much helps us to do our job on your behalf. So I just want to say a word of thanks for you taking the time reaching out. Now, in terms of the weekly update, if you're watching this on social media, through our Facebook page, for instance, or on YouTube, if you're not a member of Mass Retirees, please consider joining. You can join right through our website. Public retirees in Massachusetts are eligible to be full members of our association, but we also have an associate member program for those of you who are Massachusetts public employees, not yet retired, but you would like to use our association as a source of information in terms of your retirement planning and preparing for your future retirement. So with that, let me jump into some of the details of what's going on. Now, even though Congress currently is in their summer recess, and they won't come back into session until September 9th. There's still been a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and there's a lot of activity in July, kind of leading up to their taking their break in August, that we want to update all of you on. And it's been a couple of months since we've provided an update on the WEP and the GPO, which of course are federal laws. This has nothing to do with state or local governments. The only reason why Massachusetts is sort of lumped in with this is that we don't participate in Social Security for our public workforce. But these laws are federal laws. The only way to change these laws is through an act of the U.S. Congress and then ultimately being signed by the President. So in terms of the bills, the focus for the current session primarily has been on the two bills that would fully repeal WEP and GPO. Now, there are other bills filed that would either make various reforms to the WEP. Full repeal is also included in another bill that would make large changes or reforms to Social Security as a whole. That bill is going absolutely nowhere at this present time. There's just no appetite to tackle the larger issue of Social Security reform, even though it's going to have to be taken up sometime in the foreseeable future as we get closer and closer to that solvency date in 2033-ish. So we're now 9 years away from Social Security potentially becoming insolvent. It's going to have to be addressed. But for now, the main focus on Capitol Hill has either been on H.R. 82, which is the full repeal bill that's been filed in the House, or on Senate 597, which is filed, of course, in the U.S. Senate. Now, H.R. 82 currently has 326 co-sponsors, 210 Democrats and 116 Republicans. Now keep in mind that the House of Representatives is under the control of the Republican Party. Over in the Senate, which is controlled by the Democratic Party, Senate 597 has 61 sponsors in total, 60 co-sponsors, and then Senator Sherrod Brown from Ohio is the lead sponsor of the full repeal bill in the Senate. There are 45 Democrats supporting Senate 597, 13 Republicans, and 3 independents. Now, if you look online, you may see a discrepancy in these numbers in terms of the U.S. Senate. The Senate total that's official online still includes Senator Dianne Feinstein from California, who passed away last year, as well as Senator Robert Mendez from New Jersey, who is in the midst of resigning from the Senate after being convicted in federal court on fraud and bribery charges. So obviously, Senator Feinstein and Senator Mendez, if this bill comes to the floor this fall, they won't be in a position to be able to vote on it. So they're no longer, or they shouldn't really be considered as part of that total. Now, why these numbers are important is, on paper, it's a supermajority in both branches of the Congress. And this is significant because it is the first time since WEP and GPO were created in 1983 that we have had a supermajority of support for full repeal in both chambers of Congress simultaneously. We have routinely over the years achieved a supermajority of support in the House of Representatives, but we really never got beyond the, say, 55, 56 vote or level of support in the Senate. In the U.S. Senate, as some of you may know, you need 60 votes in order to make any changes when it comes to Social Security. So the fact that we're now at 61 senators supporting this bill is significant. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, people are co-sponsoring it, the votes are there, why don't they bring a bill to the floor and just pass it? That's an excellent question, and I don't have a particularly good answer to that other than this. Oftentimes when someone, an elected official, signs onto a bill or co-sponsors a bill, that doesn't necessarily translate to that elected official also being willing to vote in favor of it at the present time on the floor. And there are a variety of reasons for that. Generally speaking, someone will sign on to a bill that in concept they think is a good idea and should be addressed. And you'll be hard-pressed to find members of Congress or U.S. senators who don't think that WEP and GPO need to be changed. Most elected officials do agree that these laws are unfair, they're unjust, and something needs to change. Not everyone agrees on what the solution might be. For instance, a lot of elected officials, particularly on the Republican side, fully oppose full repeal of these laws, but they do support some type of reform. What complicates this even further is the fact that full repeal and or reform are very expensive. Now, it's easy for us to say our members deserve every penny that you paid into the system, nothing less, nothing more. You should be getting the full Social Security benefit that you or your spouse earned. Of course we believe that. However, the money to pay for it has to come out of the Social Security system. That's the big hurdle that's in front of whether it be reform or repeal. Full repeal of WEP and GPO is estimated to cost over the next 10 years about $180 billion. That $180 billion under the current law would come out of the Social Security system, which is of course funded by the federal payroll tax. The two reform bills, one filed by Texas Congressman Jody Arrington, who's the chairman of the House Budget Committee. The other reform of the WEP bill is filed by our Massachusetts Congressman Richie Neal, who is the ranking Democratic member on Ways and Means and the former chairman of Ways and Means. The two reform bills would cost between $30 billion and about $40 to $45 billion over the next 10 years, depending on which version of it passed. And again, that money would have to come out of the Social Security system. Now, the money that we're paying into the system today, so the money that's coming out of my paycheck, is going to pay for current benefits for retirees. The money that you paid in many years ago when you were working, those funds were used to pay for retirees receiving benefits at that time. So unlike our pension system, there really is no trust fund, so to speak, where the money is set aside to be drawn upon and through investments and so forth going into the future. Social Security is very much a pay-as-you-go system. The money coming into the system today goes to pay for current benefits today. So that means that any changes to these benefits, whether it be full repeal or some type of a reform, that money's got to come from somewhere. And that's the disagreement predominantly between Democrats and Republicans. It's how to pay for it is the biggest challenge, and that's where over the past several years, as we've gotten close, for instance, to reform bills going through, they've fallen short at the 11th hour due to disagreements over funding. The two parties cannot agree on how to fund these changes. The Republicans have proposed funding reforms through future benefit cuts, which the Democratic Party is adamantly opposed to. Democrats have proposed funding reforms through changes in how the Social Security tax is calculated from one year to the next. And of course, the Republican Party is dead set against any type of tax increase, even if it might be completely minuscule that someone would even notice the increase, philosophically they're against it. So when you have two sides that are ideologically opposed to the suggested reforms that would pay for all of this, you can't get a bill passed. And when you're looking at whether it's even $30 billion under a reform, under Representative Arrington's bill, or $180 billion under the full repeal, it makes a very, very difficult challenge ahead. Now, Congress comes back into session on September 9th. There is a possibility of a bill being discharged in the U.S. Senate. I know Senator Sherrod Brown, again from Ohio, has been very vocal of calling on the Senate leadership, Senator Schumer specifically, to bring a bill to the floor. On the House side, there is no talk amongst the Republican leadership in the House, whether it be Speaker Johnson or Chairman Smith at the Ways and Means Committee, about releasing a bill. However, there is some talk about a potential discharge petition that would force the bill out of committee. The likelihood of a discharge petition being successful is very remote, and our fear under that scenario would be, even if a bill were to make it to the floor, under a discharge petition scenario, particularly if the Republicans banded together in support of leadership, a vote on the House floor around that type of a scenario could end in failure, which would be a tremendous setback for our entire cause. But there's a lot of work that remains to be done. Congress will be back in session for about 3 weeks in September. They'll recess again until after the November election. They are then back into session the second week of November, I believe, through around Thanksgiving, and then back the first couple of weeks in December before recessing finally for the end of the year. So for all intents and purposes, there are 7 or 8, maybe 9 weeks in total left in the current congressional session, which is not a lot of time, but we have come a long way. A lot of progress has been made, and it's been made because of the work that all of you have done. You know, our association has been at the forefront of these issues going all the way back to 1983. We have fought first for full repeal, and then over the last decade or so, been trying to orchestrate and help bring together Republicans and Democrats around some type of a compromise that would put more money back in our members' pockets. And unfortunately, those efforts have continued to fall short. But that does not mean that we're giving up. Perseverance pays off, particularly in terms of advocacy and legislative progress. It does not come quick. It is not easy. If these issues were easy to resolve, they would have happened years ago. And these are issues that impact the entire country. The issues we're working on here in Massachusetts only impact the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the voters and the citizens here. Social Security issues impact every single one of us across the country. Even people who are not impacted by WEP and GPO. Any change in the financing of Social Security that could speed up insolvency, for instance, is a major concern for everybody. And that's part of the reason why it is so difficult to change these issues. And at the end of the day, not everyone agrees on what that solution should be. But we're going to continue to do our part behind the scenes and publicly to bring both sides together to advocate for some type of change. If it can't be full repeal, then what can they do? But that being said, we're not going to just accept any old deal that's thrown in front of us. It has to be something viable, something that's going to be a tangible benefit that's going to improve your day-to-day lives. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're in this for. We're in this to help our members. We're in this to get the job done on your behalf. And I know all of us here at Mass Retirees know just how much WEP and GPO have harmed our members financially and continue to do so going forward. So we're going to have a larger update on these issues in the next edition of The Voice, which as a matter of fact is going to press today. So look for that sometime in the middle of September hitting your mailbox. And then we'll provide a further breaking news update later in September once we have more information from Capitol Hill and what may or may not be happening and what types of avenues potentially could open up for either a bill to break loose or some type of a compromise to be introduced. With that, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back to you just before Labor Day to close out the summer. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.